I know what I'm doing. Okay. Oh.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Kimberly. So everybody, this is Kimberly.
Hi, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Yeah. Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it was nice. A lot of rain.
Really?
Yes, a lot
Okay.
over the weekend. There's been flooding all over.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, same here. We got a little kiss of that hurricane that came over the Mexico and into Arizona, so it got pretty flooded out here too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody who's going to be watching this?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kim Martinez, and I'm here with my cousin Genevieve. And we're just trying to get, information out there and help people out who survive trauma of any sort. I mean, bottom line, we're all just healing from it, so it doesn't matter what type of trauma you went through, whether it was a consistent thing that happened over and over, but we're all here.
Yeah, I love that we're doing this. I know, we're going to be trying to raise as much awareness as possible on this topic of trauma. I know trauma comes in many different forms, mentally, physically. Now, just so everybody's aware, we are not, how do you say, like officially professionals?
Totally professionals. We're professionals because we lived it, but as far as doctorate certificates, no, we are not licensed.
Not licensed. We are officially unofficial. So we are just going to be going over some key things that we've learned through experience, maybe share some of our own experiences, and hopefully this helps. And if you guys want to join in on the conversation, the comment section is open. And then also, Kimberly, you have your podcast and it's Unbroken, right? You're calling it Unbroken.
Yes, so I'm trying to get that going and try to come up with kind of ease into the topics a little bit and figure out how to navigate this live and video stuff on the internet.
Yep. All right, now let's dive right into it. We're going to try to take at least an hour of our time. And for whoever is watching, if you have the time, just get comfortable, chime in if you can. But first and foremost, what is trauma? So I know the textbook definition, I was able to look it up really quick. Trauma is defined as a deeply distressing or disturbing event or experience that causes significant emotional, psychological and or physical harm. It can be a single event or a series of events that overwhelm an individual's coping mechanisms, leading to lasting negative effects on their well-being. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah. So the word trauma is just, what we've come up with as a term to describe just certain events that have happened to us, right?
Right.
All right. Now, again, we're just raising awareness on this on possible impacts of traumatic situations and, what those can cause. Now, tonight's topic, because for those that saw our last podcast, I know it's been a couple of weeks since we were on last discussing this topic, and we went over just the key basics of it. But tonight we're going to be discussing childhood trauma. Okay. And also understanding it. So let me ask you, if you want to share, is there anything that you can remember that impacted your childhood on that level of being traumatic for you?
I can't narrow it down to just one thing. It was pretty much everything, Adults being the proper adults, the constant fighting and the yelling, the screaming, going from one house to another, visiting with people. Some people had certain rules, other had others. Most of it was kids should be seen and not heard. Didn't matter if you got hurt or not. You were told to speak up, but at the same time, they didn't want to hear it. It just progressively got worse. And then, when you come from a broken home into another broken home, it's just like building up, and to realize how unstable everyone was around us, who were supposed to be responsible adults caring for us and protecting us. None of that existed. And the ones that were like that with their own kids, when it came to others, for some reason they looked the other way. And that's not right either. Like, you see a kid getting hurt, speak up. Save that kid. You never know what's going to happen with that kid.
Mm-hmm.
They could be grown, not being healed, and doing bad things out in the world, causing others harm, causing themselves harm. You never know what's going to happen. So always look out for the little ones. They have who to go to anymore, and with so many people letting them down, then you just don't even ask anymore.
Yeah. Now, with the series of events that build up as far as, them becoming traumatic for you individually, because, trauma is going to be looked at differently for everybody, so what might be traumatic to me might not be that big of a deal to somebody else, but for you, I'll ask you, how did you come to like finally understand what was even happening and that this is like not right?
Just, the older I got, the more I realized not all families operated the same way. Some had similar degrees. Some of them were so good you thought you were hanging out with Leave It to Beaver and his family, it was a hit and miss. And when you found those good spots, then you made good with the family. The parents were your besties, just so you had a safe place to go. And it got to the point where after, begging everyone to help you, you just got to where I'll just shut up and enjoy the happiness, It's not like anybody's going to do anything other than there goes your safe spot where you felt like you were part of a normal family, which was weird because it wasn't really normal to you. To them, it was. And then you realizing, hey, they don't yell and scream at each other. There's not things flying, there's not all this trauma going on. And they generally love to spend time together.
Right. Yeah, no, I had my safe places when I was a youngster. I definitely felt sometimes, and not that being at home was like always bad, but when those moments come, and you just want to get the heck out, like the fight or flight, for me, it was always flight. Yeah. Until probably my late 20s, I stopped running away, really, because that was just part of one of my coping skills, was just get the heck out of here and go find someplace safe, like as if there was an earthquake happening, and you got to run and find shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say too, that is something that whoever's watching, if you find yourself feeling, like your anxiety levels are rising, your blood pressure is rising, that you have a safe place to go.
Right. Yeah.
Now, another thing Do you think you were displaying any signs of being traumatized, like to your family?
I think so.
Like that cry for help, I
Yeah,
guess,
for help. You know, you
when
would,
you're younger?
yeah, you would try to reach out to the ones who said to reach out to them. And most of the time, like nothing would come of it, or you'd get, oh, it's all your fault, but it didn't happen. Like, seriously, you know, make it stop, make them pay, you know, take them out of the equation. But it was a lot of unhealed adults trying to raise another broken generation. You know,
Right.
nobody was really responsible back in the 70s and 80s. They were all traumatized. So many wars had already happened, and that's not just in the world, that was within the family itself. I mean, look at the family now, how broken and divided pretty much the whole world is now, you know.
Right.
And it used to be, you know, family dinners every night, weekends together, a whole family get together a couple of times during the summer, holidays. And now nobody really talks to anybody.
Yeah, and even that alone, just the complete silence and distance, between everybody, that alone can create a whole nother different level of trauma. Because when you need the somebody to be right here and now and closer to you, it's like,
Yeah.
where is everybody, right?
Right. Yeah. Who do you reach out to? And the ones that you are closest to are too many hours away.
Yeah, and we're talking about childhood, so it's like, yeah, like early on, and I know that there's a lot of people that might be watching that like can relate, like they have similar dynamics where, you're little, you're young, and even if you're like early teens or, whatever in your teenage years, and you're just like, well, where is everybody? Like I need, like, even if you had a bad day, and that's traumatic alone when you want to reach out to somebody and you can't.
Right.
Yeah. Now I know, like, when it was me displaying, like when I'm actually like displaying signs of like I'm being traumatized right now, I just shut down. Like my shutdown alone would be like a distress signal.
Yes. Silence is the loudest scream.
Yeah, or I would want to spend a lot of time by myself.
Yeah. Zoning out. It's like you want to be by yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to be alone.
Right, and make that make sense.
Yeah. You need somebody there.
But it's like
But
the ones that you need there, right?
like, don't ask, just let me deal, okay? Just be right there.
Yeah, no, honestly, because even when I was little, now I don't know, not everybody knows my story. So, my grandma raised me, and there was nobody else really, like for the majority of the time. I know you lived with us for a little while, when we were kids, but
Yeah.
when we had to make a big move, it was just my grandma. And we lost like the support group that we had, the support system that we had when we came and moved. And there, like, it was just one of those things where I had like no one to tell anything, and then when you do finally say, oh, guess what, or what happened, or, can I tell you something? It's like, no, not right now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
tired right now. And I'm not trying to, say anything negative on grandma's part, but it was like that, like it was like,
Yeah.
so who do I talk to about this? You're the adult in the house, and
Right.
it was like when we be like, so adults, if you have young kids, don't put them off to the side, all the time. Make time for your children, because that, for my childhood, I carried that with me, like I just remember where there were times where I wanted to talk about something and there was that in the home, there was no one to talk to.
Yeah. It was hard. And then when you did get a chance to talk, you felt interrogated because they wanted to know every aspect of it. And then they'd ask you 50 billion different ways and questions. You're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm just done.
Right. Like I just really wanted to talk to somebody.
It happened. You'd have this long, lengthy conversation, and that was it. That's where it died.
Yeah. Now, next question, like this drum roll. So for childhood trauma, remember we're talking about childhood trauma. So what do you think some long-term effects of childhood trauma are?
Long-term effects, the isolation. Some kids are very extrovert. Some are shy, but when you notice a change in them on their normal behavior, that is definitely a clue in, are they more combative? Are they more quiet? Are they more sensitive than usual? Just anything. And me, like my coping was dissociating, and putting it off and just blocking it and the isolation, because what's anybody going to do anymore? It's not like the justice system helps like they should. There are still a few amazing cases where justice actually gets served, but for the most part, it's a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. And, even with the children out there nowadays, like we've got, what is it? How does this, now I can look up the statistic, but I don't want to go around on the internet right now, but isn't there like way more children in like foster care and group homes than we have like animals in a shelter?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like that's a better environment for them, but is it really?
Yeah, and it's just weird because and it seems to me too, the more we're diving into this and like the questions coming and as we're talking, it's like trauma is unavoidable.
It is. It's totally unavoidable. It's traumatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know there's the whole, nobody ever really asks to be here or whatever, but like trauma, like once we're here and we got to go through life and the people in it, in our close, tight-knit circles and even the extended circles, like trauma is inevitable, but it doesn't have to, how do you say, like, it doesn't have to like linger, like we don't have to drag it with us everywhere we go, so that's kind of what this conversation too is to help with healing as well for even youngsters that might be watching. You might have just went through a traumatic event and it didn't even have to be that big. If there's a young person watching, you might have just got cut from the football team, but like, you're never going to forget that. You're never going to forget for the rest of your life. Like, dang, like I was this close, to being a great athlete in school, but I got cut. Learn from that, build from it, take some, how do you say, like constructive criticism, like don't let it, like how some of us have dealt with our traumas, where we isolate ourselves, and things like that, like just going forward, if we can try to help people heal, like you don't have to sit there and sulk, you don't have to sit there in your sorrow, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, because trauma is inevitable.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's like the most extreme that we can ever find in history, or just the tiniest, I remember when I, broke my tailbone. I'm never going to forget that, like it was traumatizing. I couldn't sit on my tailbone for years. So it doesn't like trauma's gonna come. It's gonna come. And what we're here to do is just try to help people understand that, right? And that hopefully we can help each other going forward to grow from our trauma, right?
Right.
Now, as we're talking about that, I do have another question. What are some coping mechanisms that you think worked for you to help you in the healing journey?
Music.
That's a good one.
Music. And depending on what you're going through, sometimes you just don't even pay attention to the words. You need the music, something constantly going on. And other times the words hit harder than the music does.
Yeah.
So, and then you could tell what kind of state you're in by what calms you, which genre are you listening to? What song is playing on loop?
Yeah.
Which one got you through most of it?
We do have a comment on our podcast from Hello. It says, going back to the topic of dysfunctional family, some people grew up without a father figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why is that? We won't dive into that tonight, but yeah. So if you're a dad out there, just know what you're doing if you're not around.
Right.
And for kids that don't have their dad right now at the moment, what would you say to those kids?
Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like to have had both parents. But the few moments I did have both parents around, it was always fighting and arguing. If they were separate, maybe you'd have a good time with one, and the other one would be upset that you had fun,
Yeah.
And some were just so, I guess, people pleasing that you got treated right if the certain people were around. If the regular people were around, it didn't matter, the same stuff would happen. You'd get shoved off and everything, but, people got to keep up appearance and make it look like they're doing good.
Yeah. Now, I didn't have my dad, so just to knock on his comment, and if my dad's watching right now, it's nothing against you. I'm just going to share that, not having just a dad around, like your dad around, and me and my dad, we've already talked about this in our own way. There were times I did want my dad, like where whatever was going on, no matter what it was, or even like to teach me how to drive, and things like that, as a kid growing up, or if I had some kind of performance, because I'm not saying he was never around, but it wasn't like consistent. Yeah, he didn't live with me, so it's not like he set up my soccer game. It's not like he set up the talent shows. He didn't set up the birthday parties, and things like that. And there were times where you look around and you're just like, man, I wish my dad was here. Because even as a grown woman and I had my kids, like I wish both of my parents really would have been there to witness the birth of their grandchild, or even at my wedding, or what I mean? Just there are going to be times
every little thing,
Yeah, like cause even in on those days where everybody's just really not doing anything and it's a lazy day and you're just kind of like where everybody's hanging out by themselves, when it's time to come together and you don't have your parents, whether it's your mom, your dad, or both,
right.
It is just one of those things where you're either going to keep that tradition going, and in the next generation, they're not going to have their parents or their father or their mother, or you're like, no, like I can't do this to my kids, you know, because it's going to go one way or another, you
Right.
know. Yeah, so just know though that, and then there's times where if you didn't have your parents growing up, don't look at it as like it's a bad thing, you know, because you don't know why your parents weren't there. You don't know if, you know, if you hanging out with them all the time would have really brought you down in life, you know, like, or, you know, made it worse, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good one, Ho. Thank you. So yeah, so you said you were saying you were turning to music. I love that one. That's a good way to kind of get through things.
Yeah. I mean, it was the more healthier one.
Now, what genre of music do you typically listen to
Um,
nowadays, or when you were a kid? We're talking about childhood trauma. So when you were a
yeah.
kid, what was it?
I liked a lot of rock, you know, and then there was certain oldies that would just kind of, you know, make you wish for a better time because in that decade that the music came from, people were having dinner together and spending time as normal families, and nobody talked about the negative side. You
Mhm.
know, it just seemed like such a dream era to grow up in. You
Yeah.
know, the fun, the kids being out and not getting hurt. So, but yeah, I love my metal.
I do have a few metal songs that I can appreciate, you know, like thank you for making them. And it
Yeah,
seemed like on the topic of music and being able to use music to help you get through whatever it was, like I feel like when it comes to the music foundation, there was a genre and like a different song for every occasion. You know, like there was like when I'm real mad, you better believe that there's some kind of sound coming through my speakers, you know. When I was like going through a breakup, you know, there's always going to be that, you know, song about like you don't need him, you know.
no, totally brokenhearted, or you're like, you know, fuck that fool, you know.
Right, exactly, yeah, you know. And then just, you know, when I need something more just like uplifting, there's songs out there where they encourage you to just be the best, you know. Or
Right.
you know, like that one song, what is that song, Unwritten, like that song's a good one, you know, like where it's just kind of like let's just be motivational here, you know, like let's just be uplifting and you're gonna make it. Or, you know, yeah, there's got to be a song for every traumatic experience, whether it's good or bad.
And it just hits, you know.
It does.
Just brings you right through. It's like, okay, I'm not alone, you know.
Yep,
And
yep.
no, you're not, but to actually find somebody who went through similar shit, or somebody you can talk to, and they see you, they see your pain, they hear what you're saying without judging or anything. And before you know it, you know, you got a buddy you can swap war stories with. You laugh together, you cry together, and you know, you just look back like, I can't believe we survived all that, you know?
Yeah, because trauma is there's gonna be a taste of trauma for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't know if there is one person on this planet that has not been. I mean, it was traumatic coming into this world in the first place. Like that's a traumatic, like just coming through that birth canal, you know, and it starts there. Because the next thing is, where's my first meal coming from? You know, who's going to
Right.
feed me?
Yeah.
So knowing how to, so when, like for youngsters that might be watching, or if you're a parent, you have youngsters, you know, just recognize that we need an outlet. Everybody needs an outlet.
Outlet.
Yeah. Now, Hala watching uses weightlifting. I know that there were times in my life where I would go jogging. There are people that I don't know, they pick up a hobby, you know, of some kind. So for youngsters or parents watching, you know, just know it's coming. It's coming for everybody, you know, trauma, not karma, trauma.
Trauma.
but having a healthy outlet when we need one.
Yeah.
Don't, we're not going to encourage, I'm not going to encourage those like unhealthy outlets, because some people, let's just be honest, there's a lot of people that get on that unhealthy train. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not
easy to break that cycle of unhealthiness,
Yeah, and you don't want to self-destruct.
Right.
Yeah, and just, because I mean, trauma, again, it's going to be on a scale for everybody differently. What I think was a big deal may not be a big deal for other people, but just know that there are healthy ways to get through it. Like we're talking music, weightlifting, running, picking up a hobby, drawing something, or even just talking it out with a friend, or because I know that a couple, just to name a couple, there's drugs, there's alcohol, even when some people turn to food, it can be risky, like just when they're dealing with what just happened,
Right. Yeah, and you got your emotional stress eaters, your emotional stress drinkers, or extracurriculars, legal or not. They're going to get their hands on whatever they can to kind of numb the pain when the healthy outlets don't do it, or they never knew the healthy outlets.
Yeah. And I mean, because, when something traumatic, it takes just one little thing, like, not, and I'll say little, but, one thing, it's going to spike, just from experience in my trauma, it's going to raise your blood pressure. It's going to increase your anxiety. It's going to alter your mood, your train of thought, like your common sense and things like that. So just know that when your next traumatic, whatever it's going to look like, when the next traumatic event happens in your life, how are you going to face it? For like the youngsters that might be watching and they don't have anybody else that's telling them this, or, any kind of guidance in their life, just know that when it happens, you're going to have to figure out how to handle it and face on right there in that moment. And just please don't let it be something that's going to ruin your life, or self-destruct. You don't need to self-destruct, because a lot of times the things that happen to us wasn't even our fault. It wasn't even our problem in the first place.
Right.
But because somebody had a problem and they pushed it out on you or whoever, in your house or at school or at your job, now you think it's your problem, and it's not.
No.
It's not. So, with that being said, in the process of recovery, because, when trauma happens, we're going to have to figure out how to recover from it. What does healing look like and feel like to you?
It feels scary. That's for damn sure. You get so used to being in that hyper intuitive mode where you're judging inflection, pattern, tone, words, how they're being used. Are they hyphenated? Are they big words? Just every little thing. Footsteps. Are they light? Are they heavy? Just paying attention to everything and trying to get out of that survival mode that you've been in for so long is scary, because that's normal living to you. Like, how do you live to live instead of live to survive? That's the hard part. That's the scary part. But, I mean, you got to do it. You got to make that jump.
Yeah.
You got to jump and just do it. And then once you get there, it's nice. It's not going to be all smooth sailing, but it does help to get past those small hurdles, and you just keep going up, and you'll hit some rock bottoms here and there, but you just got to keep going. You can't give up. Don't make a permanent decision for a temporary feeling.
That's a good one.
I mean, yeah, that feeling's going to come back, but it's not going to stay there. and we just learn how to deal with it for the moment, embrace that feeling, and just kind of let it go, because the past already happened. You can't change it. So you either run from it or you learn from it.
Yeah. That is absolutely right. Now, because I know that when it comes to childhood trauma, when something happens like in someone's childhood, it will paralyze them literally for some the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's unfortunate, because that's not quite the word I was looking for, but it's like it is. It's unfortunate. It's sad, that my heart goes out. Like, I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for people that were traumatized in their childhood, like, and on scales of all kinds, whether you were beaten by your parents, or, the abuse, physical abuse. And, it's just
The verbal, all of it.
all of it.
It all adds up, Sometimes the physical seems better because once you heal, and that's it. You can kind of forget about that a little bit better.
Yeah.
Whereas, the mental aspect of the abuse is what lingers, the voices that you hear constantly tearing you down and belittling you. And, you have those moments where you could look in the mirror and you like what you see, and other moments you can't even look yourself in the eye in the mirror, It's just like trying to recognize that trauma happens to everyone, and you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, like, one thing I remember in childhood that, like, really stuck with me, because that saying, and this, because we have trauma, that saying, forgive, forget, whatever, however it goes. I will never forget, but I can forgive, like, when I was little, and I want to say when you lived with us when we lived in California, San Diego.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but my mom, for whatever reason, when my mom would, because I just remember it was one time when she came to visit. I'm really little, and she was about to leave. Now, as a child, so young, the confusion, like, well, how come I'm not going with you? Like, why aren't you taking me with you? Like, why do I gotta stay here? So it was like, I just remember clinging and crying, like, don't leave me.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, because she would come. I don't know if you remember, but, like, Irma, she would come, she would visit for a little while, and then it was time to go. But
yeah, you're all watching, like, is she going to come back today? Is she coming back today? And then boom, here comes mom, here comes dad, popping in randomly, and you two getting so excited.
yeah, that was a
It is what it is. I mean, they had their reasons.
Yeah, and there's always hindsight too, where it was probably for the best, that I was where I was for their reasons, and now I can understand. But remember, when we're children, or if you have children at home, whoever's watching, and you might be even doing stuff like this, just popping in and check on them, then you leave, you don't know the impact, you don't know what moment your child's going to remember for the rest of their life, so just, like, we're trying to bring that awareness, like that, like, they thought that they were doing us a favor by showing face, well, let me just let the kids know that we remembered them, and that we're thinking about them, so we'll come see them. But then they leave, and that right there, that act of just walking out and you're leaving me behind, what? But I get it now. But again, we're talking about childhood trauma, because if this stuff was happening to us adults, in our adult life, we
Right.
might already know and have a comprehension of what's going on, like even if you're like an older child and your parents are fighting and they might just be getting a divorce, you're a little bit older and you can understand, that, okay, things aren't going so great between mom and dad, right?
Yeah.
But when you're like 3-4 years old, you don't get none of that. Like, cause none of that is my problem. Like, I don't know what you guys are doing. No
Right.
one is going to sit down and explain to the 3-year-old, what's happening. And maybe we should, but again, we don't know what is going to cause another traumatic, for that individual, that child,
Right.
And then even something, now this may not seem like a big deal to some, but I'll share another experience that got me for the longest up until I want to say just a few years ago. I was like done with eating fish. Okay. When we lived on San Diego, I ate some fish sticks and they were so delicious. My grandma said that I was eating my goldfish, Goldie, from the fish tank. Now, I could joke and laugh about it now, and maybe I didn't like.
They died.
I know my goldfish had died, and I can laugh about it now. But I like that. I mean, I won it at the fair, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it was a prize fish, and it grew and grew. Like, it was the little, and it grew to be pretty good sized goldfish, and then just up and dies. But tell me why, as a child, I'm eating fish sticks, and I learned, my grandma's telling me, oh, that's Goldie. I spit that fish out so fast, never ate another bite of fish the rest of my life. Now, even as a teenager, I could have just tried to play with trying to taste fish again, but that thought
Right.
altered my taste buds. And no matter what kind of sauce I was dipping a fish stick into, even as I got older and even into my 20s, up until just a few years ago, my taste buds have finally come back for fish. That little tiny joke.
Wondering, did you really eat your fish?
And it was because, I got older and it's like, I know I'm not eating my goldfish. I know that has been like a long gone situation, but just the trauma from it, from like just thinking I'm eating my favorite pet, and spitting it out.
And why is it you never had pets very long?
But it was like, but something that some people might think, oh, that's funny, actually, no, for me, it was traumatizing. Like, my taste buds literally changed for fish. Fish sticks, no, I don't want to smell them. I don't want to taste them. I tried as I got older, but the trauma literally changed my taste buds. And that was what I'm trying to say. You don't know what you're doing really to your kids. You think it's the littlest thing.
You think it's funny, and they're over there traumatized.
I was done. I was so done, and I finally acquired a taste for it, because it's not like I just gave up on fish altogether. It's just that it had a taste. Like, I didn't like it until recently, where I think my mind and my senses and just the extent of that trauma for me has finally gone from like a boil to a simmer, maybe,
and now fish comes from. So
yeah. And I mean, I've always known where fish come from, but like, that's like saying like you ate your cat, for some people, if you're cat people, or your dog, or your guinea pig. Well, it was straight up like, oh, you're eating your pet. Like, no. That thing, like, we would follow, like, I would mess with it, like, we had a relationship through that glass, So, yeah. Trauma. It's gonna happen. Just know how to get through it.
At least you laugh about it,
Yeah, and that's why, that's what it looks like now, as far as my recovery and stuff, because once upon a time I was crying, I would cry over it, but just, I guess, on for outward appearances, that's what recovery and the process that, for me at least, that I am healing and that I am recovering from certain things, I can laugh about it now, even though when it was happening, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much. But the things that I cried over the most at some point in my life, I can talk about it now with a little more ease. But that's why I kind of described it as like, I used to boil over certain things.
Right.
And now it's just like a simmer. I'm not, the water isn't always going to cool down completely, but at least
Just I can. That does, life throws you another curveball.
Yeah, that's what it kind of might look like for me, at least. Now, just going forward, because I don't want to take up everybody's night. How do you think we can create, just for anybody worldwide, let's just go on that level. We're going to go worldwide scale. How can we create a safer environment for children?
That is a very puzzling question.
If it was possible, and if we lived in a perfect world, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta start, taking kids' words and handling it right off, instead of putting it off. But then you have those circumstances where kids are forced to say things that they don't want to say, things that they know aren't true. So,
yeah.
It's kind of a catch-22, and then trying to get the right people in there, knowing that not all of them are going to be the right people.
Yeah. And I guess, if we really, really, really wanted, because how they say, and I'm sure we've all heard how kids are our future, right?
Right.
We could start with listening a little bit better.
Yeah. Talking with them more.
Being present more.
Yeah.
Like letting children just, because we still have a whole new generation, coming up,
Oh, yeah. We just had a whole group of them pop up this year,
Yeah, for real.
And
yeah, I have a niece. I got new cousins. There's babies on the way.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be more babies, and are we going to teach them the right things, the truth? Actually listen when we warn them about the bad people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to get them the help as soon as possible.
Yeah. And because, the world may never be 100% safe as far as safety goes, we can at least try to give those, what do we call it? Like those coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Like pass some of that to the next generation, because if we know that this world is never going to be what we're hoping it was, for our kids' kids', just generations to come, as babies are always going to be on the way. Let them know that, maybe give them that awareness, if anything happens, this is a way to get through it, instead of pretending that we live in a perfect world, like nothing bad is ever going to happen, and even for the parents that, Oh, my dog's here.
Mm-hmm.
Even for parents, that are even inflicting trauma on their kids, maybe stop, and take a minute to ask your kid if what they're doing to their kid is helping or hurting, like own up to it. If you're the one out there causing chaos and causing trauma,
Right. Yeah.
maybe knock it off. Or quit doing it to your kids.
I mean, find people that line up with your views on things and, start little support groups.
Yeah. And always have somebody that you do feel safe. That's one thing I can tell the youngsters. Make sure that you do have somebody you feel safe to tell things. But just know that, because we don't live in a perfect world,
you might need a few of those.
Yeah, just know, and then also too, when something huh?
Find the right adult that you could trust.
Yeah. And, just that talking about it too, honestly, because, we've made it normal for kids to just like keep their stuff to themselves.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
No.
It's not healthy. If you're going through something, whoever's watching, talk about it, because the more, and that's another thing too. Sometimes I overshare what I'm going through.
Yeah.
But that's because that's what helps. Like I can't sit here and keep it in my head, or I have to talk about it. And some people, because they don't have people like friends or family that they can trust, there is no shame in paying for a conversation. We do have professionals, the therapists, that are there to just listen. They might not always have good advice or any advice to give you, but if you just need to get it off your chest, there's no shame in paying for it, like just somebody to talk to.
Exactly.
But don't keep it to yourself. And if you're a parent telling your kids, I don't want to hear it, don't talk about our problems, like that's toxic.
Yeah, that's the worst thing.
That's toxic. Yeah. So that's what I can say about that. As far as creating a safer environment, because safety is different too on different levels. But if you want to feel better after something just happened, whether, your animal just died, your pet just passed away, or, you got into a car accident, or just whatever, just whatever the trauma is, don't keep it to yourself, that, so we can start creating a safer environment. Because secrets don't make friends.
They don't make friends.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely we touched that. Getting professional help if you've been traumatized. If you can afford it, or if your insurance covers it. There's somebody, if you don't have a friend or family member you trust, just talk to somebody. Now, with your podcast, Kimberly, you are raising funds. I know a portion of the proceeds will go to an organization of this kind, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. We're gonna. Well, my plan is to, try to find numbers. If you're not in the same area, I can try to find a list of numbers to call. Partner with them, make sure that you got a safe place to stay for the night. Maybe you need a bus ticket to get back home. Like, eventually I want to be able to do more and just help out. I know things get rough. Sometimes people need a little extra money for groceries, gas, couple outfits for a new job, just simple stuff, a jacket, clothes, shoes, school's going on, kids are going to need things, just anything we can help, our community and every other community out there. And the more people who talk about it, the more people we can help, and just, get the word out and hopefully there'll be other groups out there doing it, and we can all collaborate so that we're reaching those in need, those who need help. Whatever the abuse is. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not saying people's feelings aren't valid, but I mean, you need to kind of voice what affects you, and not just because it's on the internet.
Right.
Is it something that truly affects you? Reach out, get the help you need.
There are so many people in need of help, like honest, like just even in the smallest community, and what you're doing is amazing. Honestly, you do have, we'll share around, the link if you want to, if you can contribute, if you want to be part of the cause, definitely. Kimberly, you're also doing a giveaway, and we were doing this a while back, but something traumatic happened in our family.
Yeah.
So we've pushed everything aside for a little while so we can do what we had to do for our family. But now you're going to be doing a giveaway at some point. I know it's one of those things where if you donate, you're going to be entered to win a free giveaway. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. So,
okay.
I'm trying to get this up off the ground, start scratch, and trying to learn all the logistics of it. But, with funding, maybe some collaboration with somebody else doing a similar, thing can help get a website built up, get the funding where it needs to go to get more people to talk about it. Maybe forums where you can chat with somebody and just kind of talk about the issues that affect you, that maybe somebody else went through a similar experience. And you could sit there and basically, have a new buddy that you can swap war stories with and laugh and cry together and, just be each other's support group.
Right. Yeah. No, and I know you're a well-known member of your community. From my visit being out there, I can tell that your community adores you. And they support you, and we're just trying to push this outside of your community. We're bringing awareness that this is something going on, because you've already helped so many people, just being there for them, and we want to do more. I know you want to do more, and I want to help you, and we're going to work together on wherever we can. I know you've already started in your community, so that's great. And then if we can go, I think you said it was after maybe a month, you're going to do a drawing. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to also try to get these conversations to go every week. Of course, we haven't done this for about a month just because of our own situation and the family. Starting this week, we're going to do this every week. We're going to give people the chance to chime in, leave their comments, send us messages, chat with us for this hour. If anybody needs help, definitely reach out to the closest friend you have, or, a professional. Click on the link if you can contribute and help donate to the cause, so we can get families back on their feet as well after going through something traumatic in their lives, and enter to win into that free giveaway. Again, we want to make sure that everybody's just aware. We're not professionals. We're just doing this because we've got our own stories to tell. Right. And hopefully it can relate to somebody watching, and if not everybody.
Yeah, I mean, even if it doesn't, it still helps knowing that somebody struggled really bad, and we're still here.
We're still here.
We're still here.
We're gonna get through it together. One soul to the next, and hopefully then some, and hopefully just even talking about it, can bring some peace to certain individuals that need it, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll leave the links. And you'll have some resources. Reach out to Kimberly if you need some resources. You know, she's very resourceful in her community as well, or even outside the community. We can all work together, getting through our trauma. Now, I don't want to keep you. Do you have any last points before we wrap this up?
No, just, always be there for your community, for people, strangers on the street. I mean, whether you have beef with anybody or not, if you see them looking down, at least say hi, a smile on the face, a hi, how you doing, how's your day going. Sometimes a random hug is all a person needs to get through their day, just to make it another day, be the reason why somebody went home with a smile, or felt seen and heard and loved, even for a moment. Spread
I love that.
the respect.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to go out in my own community and try to do that as much as I can. I know you're doing the same. I've seen you in action. So, and I love you for it. I really do. And everybody loves you for it in your town. So, well, I really do hope you have a good night. I hope everybody watching has a good night. I hope we've touched, what we needed to touch on this topic. And we're going to do this again next week, same time. Because I don't know when the time zone is going to change for you, but it'll be the same here in Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll try to keep this at the same time until we figure out that whole time zone thing.
Yeah, that whole time zone thing will equal out here real quick, because we sprung forward. We should be falling back here shortly. I think it's sometime this month.
Okay. All right. We'll figure it out when the time comes. But in the meantime, thank you guys for watching. I'm Genevieve. This is Kimberly.
And you guys have a good, blessed night.
Bye.
And bye.